Oh, you
Hello,
guys are going.
everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I'm so sorry we're late. It's totally my fault, 100%. I'm also incredibly unprepared. There you go. Um, just give me a second. Let me say hello to the chat. What's up, Alicia? Hello, Tone. Bianca, what's up? Oh, Joe is in there. Joe is in two places at once. Magic. Gray Sky Vegan, hello. Bretta, how you doing? And a friendo. Heisenflay, thank you for saying hello. Right, this is, oh, Nerds Like Us is here as well, hello. So this is part 2, and I think the last part of confirmation bias content. And so, can you guys see my share screen, Justin and Joe?
It is loading.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a problem. Give me a sec. There you go. Joe, now you are loading. Your camera is loading now. Listen, we're all professionals here, is what I'm trying to say. Justin, how are you? Justin, can you hear us? Oh, shit. I guess let me try reconnecting. Well, this is embarrassing. Let's try it again. Let's try restarting it. No, everything is still pretty shit. What's going on? What's going on? Try again. Try again. Damn. Sorry, guys. I hope you can still hear me. Task manager. I can never find it. Discord. Let me just end the task and start it again, guys. This happens. Damn. You can still hear me. That's good.
System.
Yo, some shit went down, but we are here now. You were loading for me. But
There you are.
Can you hear me now? Oh my God. I've
Yes.
been looking for you guys.
Yes.
Okay.
VPM's back.
Sorry about that, guys. So, let me just share the screen. All right, professionals, we're professionals. Okay, Joe, would you like to start us with the bystander effect, I think?
Sure, yeah. So the bystander effect is, I'll just read the card. Mm-hmm. You presume someone else is going to do something in an emergency situation. When something terrible is happening in public setting, we can experience a kind of shock and mental paralysis that distracts us from a sense of personal responsibility. The problem is that everyone can experience this sense of de-individualization in a crowd. This same sense of losing our sense of self in a crowd has been linked to violent and antisocial behaviors. Remaining self-aware requires some amount of effortful reflection in group situations. If there's an emergency situation, presume to be the one who will help or call for help. Be the change you want to see in the world.
Justin, is this something you see often while doing like outreach? People kind of doing a bystander effect type situation?
I mean, I definitely see people say this a lot in that they'll sort of distance, like when you're like, who do you, like, why do you think this is happening? Like, I'll say that a lot when I show a pig in a gas chamber or something like that. And they'll be like, oh, because people are paying for it. And I'll be like, they don't say I'm paying for it, you know, and they'll often be like, yeah, I think people just need to know where their food comes from. And like, they'll say a lot of things like this that are very like distancing of the actual situation.
Yeah, it's like
where they're not situating themselves in the middle of it.
It's kind of like
Sorry,
a diffusion of responsibility, isn't it?
I think it's the same thing. I think
Yeah.
these are I know that both of these come up whenever that that what is it? Is it Kitty Hawkins case comes up? That woman in New York who was like basically like beaten and stabbed while like hundreds of people watched on from their buildings. There's some weirdness to that story. It's like not exactly as it's always told, but that's like the general vibe of it. Is that like a bunch of people watched on and like very few actually called. I actually have a story of this myself, which was wild. It happened it was either Christmas or Christmas Eve. I was visiting my parents, and they're in the South, and we went to the beach, like to walk down the beach for the day. Um, and we're walking down the beach, and there's like hotels on the beach, okay? And all of a sudden, we just start hearing this screaming, and we're like looking at it, we're like, what is that? It's this woman. She's like, help, help, help. We look up. She's probably on like I don't know, maybe like the 10th or 15th floor of a hotel, and she's on the balcony, and she's halfway hanging like over the side,
Holy
and there's
shit.
someone like behind her. And so like to us, it looks like this person is trying to throw her off the balcony. And my parents, it's me and my parents, and they're like, oh my God, what is happening? What is happening? I'm like, yeah, what's happening? And everyone's just kind of going, what's happening? And this, again, from knowing this effect specifically, I could feel just being like, oh man, that's wild. You know what I mean? And not doing, like, I could feel myself not doing anything. And I was like, oh, wait a second, fuck, like I know this. And I was like, okay, I got to call the cops. And they were like, oh, like they were almost like surprised that I did it. And so like we called the cops. And you have to understand, I mean, this is like a big hotel. There's tons of people on the beach. There's a ton of people watching. When the cops finally showed up, this person never got thrown off. Thank God, because it was like that really ruined the Christmas day. But when the cops came, we were like, oh yeah, like, and we were explaining it to them. They're like, yeah, you and one other person called. It was like two people had called. You know, out of, I don't know, hundreds of people, thousands of people who saw this woman screaming on the balcony. And it was such like a perfect, like real world, like crystallization of this. And honestly, like I would have liked to think that I would have called regardless. But I really do think I called because I knew this and I had like heard about it before. And I was like, oh shit, I know what's going to happen if I don't call.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really wild experience to see it like in action.
Yeah, I think
I've had
it's
a couple
also.
of those.
Oh, sorry, go on, Joe.
Yeah, I was just gonna say some anecdote. I think I've probably called 911 at least 10 times in my life already, and the craziest one was I was driving southbound I-25 in Colorado, and coming in the opposite direction. You know how in the United States there's those big median ditches, just like two-lane highway each way, and then there's like this big ditch in the median. I saw a car veer off the road coming the opposite direction and just flip across the median and then land upside down in the lane next to me. It was like maybe 10 seconds ahead of me. So I just pulled over instantly and just called 911 right away. I was like, I think I'm the first person who's seen this happen. And then I had to stay on with the responder until the emergency people showed up. And then they like even interviewed me and stuff but I feel like,
Wow.
yeah, a lot of people will probably just like drive past that. And recently I remember I was going to the DMV. I was on I think it was like 17th Street, downtown Denver, and I saw a guy just get hit on his bike, like on the street, and I just pulled over and called 911 right away. I don't know, it's just like, I didn't know about this effect before, but for some reason for me, I just like pull my phone out and do it. I don't know,
Yeah.
because I'm just like,
Interesting.
that guy just got run over by a car. So maybe some people are immune to it, but every time I see something like that, it's like, I gotta call, yeah.
I think it's also like a little bit cultural because here on Mars, where I am, people kind of, when it's an emergency, people really turn up, really, really like immediately go into action. But when it's like, oh, it's just like a bunch of homeless people, that is like less likely to be, although almost everybody like gives donations and stuff like that. So it also could be just like, you Americans are
Hey.
actually just shit people.
Well, something that was interesting though
probably
is
true.
that whenever I did call, like I noticed this like sort of freeze response. You know, it's like the fight, fawn, freeze, whatever, that sort of thing. Is I noticed that other people were freezing. I could feel myself freezing a bit too, just because of how shocking it was. But as soon as I did something, then all of a sudden my parents were like more on board. Then they were like, oh, like we'll help you do this and that, and like let me take the dog's over here, so they're like away from blah blah blah. And it was like once like someone just sort of broke that seal, other people kind of felt comfortable. They had that sort of social permission to then also engage in some sort of helpful behavior. And then even a stranger came up and he's like, I'll go and talk to the person at the front desk of the hotel. And so like he went there while we were standing, you know what I mean? And it was like that initial little push just kind of like brought everyone together a little bit. So, and I think again, hopefully that's what we're doing as vegans, in the broad scheme of things here, is that we're that seal breaker, right? We're the ones who are coming in and being like, it's okay to not go along with what society has like told you your whole life.
My mind like immediately goes into, well, as vegans, how do we harness that? How do we harness the switch, right? I don't know.
Well, I think so. Again, just to relate it to a real world thing, like I said, after this, I'm hoping to go to a puppy mill protest where we're trying to basically just get the store closed. We don't want this breeder coming to Raleigh. And it's one of those things that like the public is kind of already on board with, like there's a ton of people who aren't vegan, but who like are not about puppy mills or breeders. Like it's like the whole adopt, don't shop thing. And so I think like even us being there and being in front of the building and like with signs and stuff and being like, this isn't okay, right? There's people there who are going to see that and be like, yeah, you know what, that isn't okay. But if we weren't there and it was just getting normalized, they might not think anything of it. Maybe they think, oh, okay, maybe puppy mills aren't so bad,
Yeah.
And so just acting as that counterbalance to sort of just break the spell, I think is important.
That's awesome. Joe, any other last words before we move on?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered this one pretty well. Yeah, it's just completely obvious with the vegan situation. And yeah, I've seen this a lot in real life when I do vegan outreach with friends and family, especially. They'll agree with the value and then they'll just be like, well, there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there is, but yeah, they just assume it'll fix itself or someone else will do something about it or yeah.
Yeah.
So the next one is confirmation bias. Joe, by the way, if I'm not going by, if I'm wrong, let me know. Next one is confirmation bias, yeah?
I think whatever order is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. All right, that takes the pressure off. So confirmation bias is your favorite things that confirm your existing belief. We are primed to see and agree with ideas that fit our preconception and to ignore and dismiss information that conflicts with them. Yeah, when I was reading about cognitive dissonance, this was pretty prevalent. You could say that this is the mother of all biases as it affects so much of our thinking through through motivated reasoning to help counteract its influence. We ought to presume ourselves wrong until proven right. That's amazing. Think of your ideas and beliefs as software you are actively trying to find problems with rather than things to be defended. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself. And you are the easiest person to fool, said Richard Feynman. Yeah.
Amazing quote. Everyone should have that tattooed on their lower back.
Justin gives advice about tramp tattoos, guys. This is what you can expect on the VPM channel. All right, what do you have to say about confirmation?
Excellent quote.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you want to start first, Joe?
Sure. Yeah, I think when I first went vegan, I think I heard you talk about this on your stream or on one of your videos, Justin, that like you got addicted to vegan debates for the sole reason of like trying to find this like reason for carnism. Like there has to be a good reason, right? Like so you just like get addicted to like Earthling Ed debates and Joey Carbstrong, and then I got into like Ask Yourself and Dr. Avi and Nutrivore. And I was just like, I need to find like one solid argument, and I couldn't find one. And then eventually it's just like, all right, I'm vegan, I guess. And yeah, so I just like kept trying to like find this evidence to confirm my belief for carnism, and it wasn't there. And yeah, I think once it was a big switch that flipped when you go vegan, where it's just like, well, shit, what else am I wrong about? Because like I gotta be wrong about. So I think I've like lost the confirmation bias heuristic in my mind now, and I do kind of assume I'm usually wrong,
Yeah.
and then just look for evidence on either side. Because veganism was like a big one where it really shattered my preconceived worldview. I think atheism was the first one, but that was like I was so much younger. I was like 13, and I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, this is religion's bullshit. So, but veganism, I was like 31, I think. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's just like I'm a grown ass man, and I've been doing this my whole life, and I was wrong about this. So, what else is there? I gotta be wrong about basically everything, right?
You
So
also
it's yeah,
you
it's
you're also kind of smarter at 31, so you have like more excuses in your arsenal than when you are like a 13-year-old child, when you're a dumbass who knows nothing.
Yeah.
yeah. When I
Yeah.
was 13, I was like, yeah, it's like Santa Claus, and Santa Claus isn't real. It's like, but 31 is just like I've been going to the grocery store for over a decade now, and I've been a grown ass adult. What the fuck have I been doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. It is wild. It's funny. I had a similar arc. I think mine was like 12 and 33 rather than 13 and 31. But the same thing with like becoming atheist. And then, because I wasn't raised in like an evangelical household, but I was raised in like a household where like my grandma or my great grandma took me to church like every Sunday. And it was definitely instilled in me that like if I didn't repent for my sins every day, I was like going to go to hell. So it was definitely like a major part of my life that like took questioning. But yeah, this one didn't. It's like another 20 years. So
Yeah, it's
I
because
think an important thing
not
to note here is, sorry, go ahead.
we don't question this as much. We don't question carnism as much as like religion. Religion is just like much more ridiculous than carnism, in my opinion. Like just
Mhm.
by how many falsities, like really apparent falsities, it's covered by. When carnism is just like not transparent. That the things that people say to continue adhering to carnism are false. It's something that you really have to like go deep and debunk in a way that religion just doesn't have the stamina to, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think epistemically, like carnism is not so like immediately obvious why epistemically there are issues with it. Like it's not immediately obvious that like eating cows is bad for the environment or that it's like bad for your health, right? Like those things are not just as immediately clear. So it's like it's really the moral aspect is doing all the like obvious heavy lifting. Whereas like with religious claims, you just read some of the parts of the books and you're like epistemically that is just there's no way, right? Like that's
Talking
um,
donkeys, what? Yeah.
yeah. So I think there's an asymmetry there.
Yeah.
Something I want to say about confirmation bias, though, is that like so people understand this. There are three components here, and it's good to know what those three components are because then you can kind of like deconstruct them separately in your mind. And so with the confirmation bias, it's how you seek out information, how you interpret that information, and then how you remember that information. And that one's really important because you probably run into people. I know, like with my mom, back when I was like lifting a lot, I was huge and I gained a lot of weight, both fat and muscle. And she really did not like it because she didn't like aesthetically how I looked. And like for some reason, that's like a big thing for like boomer parents. Uh, and
True.
so like she would constantly ask me like, "Oh, why are you lifting when like you look worse?" And I would explain to her like the whole thing about why. And I swear to you, she would ask me this like every month that I saw her. She would just ask me the same question again and again. And she doesn't have dementia. And it's just like in her confirmation bias, she just could not remember that explanation that I had given her. It just was like not sticking. You know what I mean? Her mind just would not integrate that information.
Yeah.
And this wasn't her trolling me. It genuinely wasn't. It was like every time it was like she was just being like hit with this information anew. And it's just something important because what this means is that even if you're like, hey, like I seek out the information, I try to like interpret it in an unbiased way, it's still possible that you actually will forget that information much more quickly. And then when you're asked about it, so like, let's say you're talking about health effects, right? Let's say you're vegan and you're talking about health effects, and someone shows you a study that shows that eating cows is actually quite healthy. Even if you're seeking out that study, even if you like read it and you interpret it like, yep, the study said that, you likely will not remember that study as well as the ones that support the vegan position, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just like something to think about, well, whenever you're evaluating evidence of any kind, really. Obviously, I think the carnists are going to be more guilty of this for the most part, at least than the three people here, I hope. But vegans do this as well. I mean, vegans have I've seen plenty of vegans with unscientific and epistemically like unjustified beliefs. And part of that is because they are like either not seeking out the right information, or when they get corrected on something, they're just like not remembering it or acting like it didn't happen, you know? So like like do we need B12? That there's a perfect one. There's a lot of vegans who don't think we need B12. Again, as far as I can tell, that is not scientifically justified at all. And a lot of times people will come out with countervailing sources. But then I see those same people saying you don't need B12 later, and I'm like, did you not remember it? Did you not agree with it? Because it didn't seem like you pushed back,
Yeah.
So just it's something that we should all be aware of.
Yeah. Well, also
Yeah,
in
go
the
ahead.
sorry, the example that you gave specifically, it's also like just straight up resistance to change. It's like the belief is so strong that they don't want to change it, right? The attitude toward it is, I don't want to take a B12. By the way, last week Justin said something about attitude, that it's like a vibe. And I said, that's not a... No. Justin was absolutely correct. So if applying... yeah, I just want to say, mea culpa, I'm a dumbass. So when applying to, for instance, doing dishes, so the belief is doing dishes is necessary and even good, right? You like the outcome of it. The action is to do the dishes, but your attitude is, oh, fucking hate doing dishes. I don't like it. It's this and that and the other kind of situation. Yeah, it's a vibe, definitely.
It's actually, it made me think of something, because if you can break that down, rather than just thinking like should I take B12, yes or no, right? That yes or no is an aggregate of those three things. And if you can actually like sit there and be like, hold on, let me think critically, let me investigate my own feelings and break that down, it can help you to see like, am I being biased here? Am I not? Like, ask yourself, whenever you think about taking B12, does that do something attitudinally? Does it just feel like, I don't want to do that? Like, I don't have that. Just, I've taken supplements, for many, many years. So taking a B12 is nothing to me. But some people really don't like to take supplements. And so if you think, oh yeah, taking B12, and you kind of get that like, don't like it, like investigate that. Do you have that feeling? If you do, just understand this doesn't mean that necessarily you're right or wrong, but you're going to be more resistant to any evidence that says that you should take the B12, right? And so being able to disentangle that conceptually, and then being able to actually have the emotional maturity to investigate it internally, can kind of help break you out of some of these biases, And so I think that's like one practical aspect here that doesn't directly relate to, outreach, but that I think relates to like being a good vegan, like a good like emissary of the vegan message in general. Is being epistemically curious and humble and correct as much as you can be. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the opposite side of the coin from the B12 one is there is really good evidence that there are healthful diets that include animal products, and vegans, I've seen vegans find like the most cherry-picked study to like find that fish is unhealthy for you. Like Dr. Greg will do that. He'll like find like this like really like niche study that there was like heavy metals found in like some fish somewhere. And I actually saw Gil Carvalho break that one down, and he's like, well, by that logic, you should stop eating your lettuce because there's more heavy metals in your lettuce than like the... Yeah, so I've seen vegans fall for that, where it's like, yeah, fish is unhealthy, low-fat dairy is unhealthy, and like all this stuff, which the health outcomes show the opposite. So just be... that's why the ethics is the only real reason to be vegan, because, if there was like lab-grown mozzarella, I'd be eating that. I'd be having that on some pizza, but we're not there yet, so I'll stick with the vegan cheese.
Yeah, it's something too that I've noticed in that same vein is that, and this is the thing, kind of what we're talking about here, is vegans, even ones who know that like mechanistic explanations are not as good as outcome explanations. And so for people listening, well, I'll give it in the example. A lot of vegans will be like, yeah, fish is bad for you. Don't you know, like you said, fish has a lot of heavy metals in it, has a lot of like mercury and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, even if that's true, if that is going to have negative health outcomes, you will see it in the outcome data. So do people who eat fish actually have more health problems? Do they not live as long? Do they get cancer more? And the thing is, because you don't see that in the outcome data, And so to some extent, whether or not the fish have higher heavy metals in them is not actually relevant to the thing you care about, right? You're not eating, like, this is what I say, you're not eating food for nutrients. You're not eating it to avoid toxins. You're eating it to have a long health span, to be a healthy person. And so the outcomes are what matters. And so just to give an example here with the fish, like, okay, fish oftentimes obviously do have heavy metals in them, but just as an example, they also have high content of selenium in them. And selenium helps bind to heavy metals. And so this is just one of many reasons why just looking at a single component of a food doesn't necessarily tell you what the health outcome is going to be, because that food could have other components that counteract that. Or it could have other components that help you in other ways that counteract the general bad of like XYZ. Yeah. And so like we want to be outcome focused, not mechanistic and nutrient focused. If we have the data. If we don't have outcome data, then cool, look at mechanisms and use that to extrapolate. But when we have outcome data, which we basically do for all this stuff, look at the outcome data.
Yeah, and
you could find a mechanism that will basically confirm any belief. I've seen this over and over again. You can, like you said, you could just ignore the selenium and then go heavy metals and then like find some mechanism in the body of how that causes cancer or something. But then you could find some opposite mechanism that does the opposite thing. And if you use mechanistic speculation, you can pretty much come up with anything.
Yeah, something to notice about mechanism, that it usually concentrates on this one action, or not action, but what is it called? One thing that happens in the body, right? And it could be that like the heavy metals in the fish are not binded to selenium and they actually do some damage in the body, right? But the healthfulness of the fish perseveres. Right, and it's still like net positive kind of food. For instance, that just happens to be true about fermented dairy, so yogurts and sour creams and stuff like that. It's incredibly protective against colon cancer, for instance. Now, can you push other levers and like eat other food that is also colon protected, or not eat foods that like increase the risk of colon cancer? Yes, that doesn't make, though, the fermented dairy not colorectal cancer protective in the outcome data. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where I think people are just afraid to say that there is anything good, that there could be any good outcome with eating animals. Like the thing to remember, right, is the reason that one group oppresses another group is because they're getting a benefit, right? Now, in this case, the benefit, it doesn't tend to be health. That's not what people are looking for. But just there are always going to be benefits from oppressing the other group. And so like you just denying any benefit at all is just going to seem, it's going to look very transparent to outsiders, I think. And so I think giving them, like throwing them these little crumbs and be like, yeah, it can be. But of course, you can also be healthy doing this, and that's going to exploit mothers and blah, 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 right? You need to find points of agreement anyway. So on these trivial ones that don't really matter that much, like admit to those points of agreement. That's really important in a conversation or a debate or whatever.
I just want to end this one with how we were talking about like mechanistic data. I have a heuristic, and generally when I see like a YouTube video or some sort of doctor, he's like in a doctor's outfit on YouTube, and he has a whiteboard behind him, and he starts like drawing the human body with like all of these pathways of different chemicals and stuff. He's probably
a mechanistic speculator.
Yeah, just take that with a grain of salt. Look for health outcome data, as Justin said, is the gold standard.
It's not even what mechanisms are supposed to do, right? Mechanisms are not supposed to tell you whether something is helpful or not. It's supposed to be a pathway through which, like, medical, drug, like a big pharma is looking for, a reason for a disease, or a way to mitigate the disease through drugs and shit like that. So the mechanisms tell us nothing about health outcomes. They're literally not relevant to the conversation. Yeah,
right. Yeah,
so
what's really funny is those.
You can use Sorry, good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, those people who deny LDL as a causal relationship with heart disease, they will obviously like deny that statins are health promoting, and decrease the risk of heart disease. But that's like one of the best studied mechanisms in the human body is like how statins interact with your liver and it like change your LDL receptors and all this stuff. And the health outcome data also supports it. So it's just like, it's so ironclad that like the mechanism supports the health outcome data, but then like these people just like deny all of it. Then they'll like come up with some other mechanism that LDL is like good for you or something, like good for the brain. They'll just like make shit up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this actually ties into something, man, there's so many things I want to say. My brain's going a million miles. So this ties into something called disconfirmation bias. So this is like confirmation bias is a lesser known cousin. Sometimes it's called motivated skepticism, which I also kind of like. But this is where you will apply an asymmetric standard to evidence you don't like versus evidence you do. Mm-hmm. So just like everyone, I want everyone to think in the chat right now, if all of a sudden a study came out that said, vegan food sales, plant-based food sales up 400% in January, you'd be like, oh, awesome. That's great. That's probably what you say. But if you saw a study that said like they're down 400% since January, are you just gonna be like, oh, damn, that sucks? Or are you gonna be like, well, hold on a second. How exactly did they measure that? Was that like year over year? Or was that like specifically like plant-based meat alternatives? Did it include lentils, right? So this is like this disconfirmation bias. It's where you asymmetrically apply skepticism when it's something you don't want to hear. Yeah. And so that's also important to be cognizant of whenever you hear a study. Just think, if that study was the opposite, would I have reacted the same way from an evidence-based perspective? Would I ask for the same follow-up evidence? Would I have not asked for any follow-up evidence? And that's a good way to catch yourself with what might be. I think it's a good way to catch yourself, and then always take the method that is asking for more evidence. Figure out which way would have been the one where you said, wait, I might need to know a little more, and then follow that path to be more epistemically rigorous and responsive.
The most common one that I hear when someone doesn't like a study is, who funded it?
Yeah.
Yes, that just always comes up right away. It's like, who funded it? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Well, that one is mostly silly. It's kind of true with some things, like I think with like collagen efficacy studies, all of them, 100% of them are just like funded by companies that sell collagen, right? So like looking for that specifically for funding is kind of silly. Every study is funded. Every single one is funded by something, by someone, right? Like performing a study is so expensive. It depends on what, right? But like the better the study, the more expensive it is. Like just like the mere paying somebody to like run the study, like that person, me, is so expensive. It could go on for months, years, generations sometimes.
Yeah, and this is funny too to me because they're like, oh, like did like industry fund that study? And my question often then is like, these are the people who are like, at least when I see people say this, these are the same people who are like viciously pro-capitalist. And I'm just like, so like, do you trust any study then? Like I feel like there's like a collision of values somewhere there. I don't know exactly where it is. Like these don't tend to be the people who are like, yeah, I want more government funding or more government research, right? Yeah. So it's like, well, who do you think is going to pay for these studies? Like, I'm not just going to go and do like a fucking 3-year study and like starve.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Let's move on because we've been on this one for a while. I think we beat cognitive dissonance to death. Oh, hold on. Oh, it's not cognitive dissonance. Sorry, it's confirmation bias. In-group bias. You unfavor. Sorry, Joe, can you read this one?
Sure. So, in-group bias. You unfairly favor those who belong to your group. We presume that we're fair and impartial, but the truth is that we automatically favor those who are most like us and belong to our groups. This tribalism has evolved to strengthen social cohesion. However, in a modern and multicultural world, it can have the opposite effect. Yeah. Try to imagine yourself in the position of those in out-groups, whilst also attempting to be dispassionate when judging those who belong to your in-groups.
So this is a very strong mechanism, to dehumanization, for instance. Dehumanization happens when you like make shit up about a group, an out group, right? You like invent that they are somehow not reacting to stuff the way you or your in-group would react, that they lack that they are completely cohesive in their minds and in their views, that they are like this one group that isn't, whereas you can recognize that your group, like people think differently, people feel differently and stuff like that. The in-group bias versus like the in-group versus out-group bias is how I know this one is the mechanism for dehumanization and vicariously de-animalization as well. Of course, we kind of, the farmed animals, we don't even kind of recognize that they have animalness, that they have the sentience. And when you see people compare like a cow to a dog, they recognize that a dog is like this sentient being with wants and needs and desires and like feels fear and feels joy. And when you move on to a cow, first, all of a sudden those traits are being disappeared from the cow, and the cow becomes like this moving object kind of situation.
Yeah, it's interesting because like it's like an in-group bias where it's like dogs are literally treated different because they are like literally in your
group.
home, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like now they are part of our tribe or whatever, and so now we see them more like us. And it's interesting here too. I think to me this one is kind of funny because I feel like people who are not vegans would actually see vegans as having like massive in-group bias. But I feel like vegans in many ways have some of the least in-group bias. And that doesn't mean that we don't have any. We definitely do.
We do.
But like in both the sense that like we are bringing animals at least somewhat closer to our group, if not totally in our group. But we were all also non-vegans, or nearly all of us. I know a couple of people were vegans since birth. But we have like been steeped in the other side of that for, years, decades even. And so I think that in many ways, this does really, I know every group would say this about other groups, but this does seem to me to apply to other groups far more than vegans. But we still have to battle against this like massively. This idea that we are all, I think, a homogenous group because people will just come in and just see us as the same, which is also why I don't like when people are like, you don't need to take B12.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, somebody, Lewis mentioned infighting. Yeah, infighting happens when you kind of like divide it on a subject, and then you become your in-group is the people who believe that you shouldn't take B12. The out-group is the people who do foolishly, without evidence, believe that you should take B12 kind of situation. Yeah. Joe?
And the funny thing too is that infighting is actually a sign of like less in-group bias. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the thing is that either way it will get turned around on us. If we agree too much, then we're a homogenous cult. And if we disagree a lot, it's like, well, those vegans don't even know what they believe. They're just fighting all the time. There's always a way to spin any sort of thing against a group if you're motivated to.
We can never win. Go on, Joe.
Yeah, veganism, I think we talked about this a couple streams ago with Patrick, and I just take it as like an umbrella term for people who advocate for animal rights. And there's so many different definitions, and people adhere to different definitions. And if you ask any vegan what their personal stance on veganism is, they're all going to tell you something different, and they're all going to eat different foods and have different beliefs. And yeah, I kind of made an analogy to feminism that there's like first wave, second wave, third wave feminism, and then there's the TERFs who are cringe, and then there's like that's all under this umbrella of feminism, and basically they all have the same umbrella stance, though, that they're fighting for the rights or advocating for the rights of women, and that's what a vegan is in my mind.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. The halo effect. Oh, how sweet. How much you like someone or how attractive they are influences your other judgments of them. Our judgments are associative and automatic. And so if we want to be objective, we need to consciously control for irrelevant influences. This is especially important in a professional setting. Things like attractiveness can unduly influence issues and as important as a jury deciding someone's guilt or innocence. If someone is successful or fail in one area, this can also unfairly color our expectations of them in another area. Oh, I see a lot of like doctors being dogged on for this. If you notice that you're given consistently high or low marks across the board, it's worth considering that your judgment may be suffering from the halo effect.
I just want to start this one off with, I think I've seen every one of your outreach videos, Justin, and I can't remember one time where someone said protein, though. And you got the guns. You got the guns, you got the shoulders, and yeah, I just can't, it's just like, yeah, I'm not going to say that to this dude. Like, he's clearly in shape.
Yeah, I'm also, that's the reason I'm expanding my side delts, definitely. My biceps are already big, but my side delts need to be like more conscious.
Yeah, that width really hits people right away. It's hard to ignore.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is, oh, man, I have so much to say about the halo effect. So a lot of these are going to, when I was looking at these, because, you know, Joe, you sent over the picture of all of the cards at once. And I was like sitting there trying to do the like, you know, the Charlie Day thing of connecting all of them. I'm like, where do these all kind of like coalesce in this like nexus that relates to outreach? And I'll connect this to some other ones, but because we're going to talk about anchoring and the framing effect and things like that. And I think a lot of this, you really want to sort of diffuse a bunch of these biases in the first like 5 to 10 seconds that you talk to someone, or at least that's what I do. People have all sorts of different methods, but that's kind of like what I'm thinking about. And so in those first couple seconds, I want to like seem very sort of like a chill dude, you know, like someone who like they could hang out with, and like maybe I'm smiling, I'm asking them how they're doing. If they have a dog, I'll ask them what their dog's name is. I'll pet the dog. I'll be like, you know, he's so cute, blah, blah, blah. I'll ask them like what sort of things they're passionate about, or like what they're doing out today. Just a couple little rapport building things. And a lot of that rapport building helps to diffuse a bunch of these things. And one of them, the halo effect here, like we were just talking about in-group bias, you want that person to kind of see you as someone who could be in their in-group in some way. And there's some way that they are in your in-group, almost certainly, okay? There's somewhere on like all the intersecting Venn diagrams of things you like and things they like and values you have, where you're gonna be able to find some intersection there, you know? And so in those first couple of seconds, if you can kind of like establish that you are in some way like them, or you have a quality that they like or admire, that's going to be really good, because then you're going to be operating from that standpoint. And now you're going to get more leeway to say and show them things that might be a little more uncomfortable, but they're going to be kind of anchored to that first impression. I'm getting ahead of going into anchoring, but they're going to be kind of anchored to that first impression. And one of the things here, this one really focuses on like halo refers to attractiveness, but it can just refer to like more like general qualities that someone likes about you. And if they see those first couple qualities, that's going to be where their anchor is. You know, and so the entire conversation becomes easier because there's not as much friction, especially if you get off on a bad foot. Like, this is why, like, if you're just there, like, as an activist screaming at people, like, you piece of shit, like, this is, like, shameful, blah, 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 you're starting in the exact opposite. So there's something called the horns effect, which is the opposite of the halo effect. And then you're going to have to work your way out of a hole. And you're going to have to work your way out of a hole by telling them a bunch of shit they don't want to hear. Mm-hmm. And so, like, this is why I think, like, the halo effect is important. I mean, as far as your attractiveness, like physical attractiveness, I guess you're only gonna be able to do so much in this arena, I suppose. But lifting is something I guess you could do. But I don't want to like, this is a weird thing. Like, I don't want to say like people should lift or people should try to get more attractive. I think that's like, this is toxic in a whole other arena. But do understand that there is an effect here. This is not like, you know, there is something to this, but it doesn't have to be physical attractiveness.
Yeah, Joe commented on this when we went through the cards, and he said, well, that's the attractiveness and the way people talk. It's kind of how quacks are made, right? So like Anthony Chaffee is very attractive, right? And so like this doctor, this carnivore doctor who has like some kind of a face attractiveness, I'm pretty sure he lost it at this point, and like abs and shit, right? So he shows up his abs to make his points stronger. But when you like examine his actual points, they're all shit. They're all like brain rot.
Mhm. Yeah, and the thing is too, like even the fact that he's Dr. Anthony Chafee,
Yeah.
attractive and doctor, you're already locked in immediately. You're like, these are positive associations. These are someone I'm going to trust. And then especially when they're like, they'll do something where they're like wearing a lab coat or whatever. And that's just a visual cue that they don't even have to explicitly say anything, you know?
Yeah.
And so like those things are just going to sort of bias you.
I mean,
One thing, I
carnivores,
don't know.
they just bias you like this. Like they show the picture of Gregor, who doesn't lift, and you know he's not
Yeah.
the most beautiful man in the world. And then they show Anthony Chafee next to him, and it's like,
Yeah.
whose advice are you gonna take? Whoever speaks like with most evidence, like in this case.
Well, that's why the
none of them.
Nagra Chafee debate was a banger, because Nagra is quite the catch.
The other thing to notice too here is, again, depending on where you are, there's going to definitely be some racism intertwined with this of like what is attractive. So like you gotta be cognizant of that as well. That and like I think one thing with this halo effect and with this like looking at someone to determine how much they know about a subject. This I'm not like a shame based. I think shame is generally a bad motivator, but some of these heuristics and views, they have to become embarrassing. Posting a picture of two doctors, one who is more attractive and more in shape and one who is less attractive, and acting like there is anything there to associate with like the epistemic validity of the thing, like this has to be embarrassing to do that in the same way like that it's, I don't know, like something else is like very just like clearly embarrassing on the face of it. It is just like, I don't know, it's so toxic. It's so like epistemically toxic, ethically toxic. I hate it so much. But,
I might crop that
Yeah.
and put it in my library too. Like every time a carnivore does this, I'm just gonna put the halo effect on it and be done with it.
yeah.
And walk
Yeah.
away. Not that it matters, but it will preclude me from arguing with them even more.
Yeah, I do want to say one thing too. This is maybe a little more controversial, but I want to try to peer pressure more people into doing activism. But I think about this a lot in that the more advantages that you have, I do almost feel like there's a higher ethical pressure put on you to advocate, right? Like, are you in a wealthy country? Do you have a decent amount of money? Are you more attractive than the average person? Are you smarter than the average person? Are you charismatic? Like, are you in the country you're in? Do you face a lot of racial discrimination or do you face no racial discrimination? And like the more advantages you have, I really do think there becomes, certainly at some point, just like an intolerable amount of ethical pressure on you to start getting active in some way. When you really have like very few of these breaks on you and these like disadvantages, it just like, it feels that much more icky to just sit around and ride those advantages every day, all day, and give nothing back to any other being who is not experiencing those.
Justin, a bunch of people in my live stream probably told themselves that they're ugly just now. Just to escape
not ugly, you're
the
beautiful. You're
responsibility.
beautiful.
Kidding. Whoever can do activism, they do.
Yeah.
They should. They whatever. All right.
Yeah. I say that because I know I'm talking mostly to probably people who live in relatively wealthy countries and who are relatively smart and who know this information very well. And so you have a lot, just understand you have a lot of advantage.
All right. Let's move on.
More than many people.
The framing effect. Joe, would you like to read this one?
Sure, yeah. Framing effect, you allow yourself to be unduly influenced by context and delivery. We all like to think that we think independently, but the truth is that all of us are in fact influenced by delivery, framing, and subtle cues. This is why the ad industry is a thing. Despite almost everyone believing they're not affected by advertising messages, the phrasing of how a question is posed, such as for a proposed law being voted on, has been shown to have a significant effect on the outcome. Only when we have the intellectual humility to accept the fact that we can be manipulated, can we hope to limit how much we are. Try to be mindful of how things are being put to you.
Here's the thing, Justin, I'll give you the stage in a second. This is less relevant to vegans as such to stop having the framing effect. It's more relevant to the fact that carnists have the framing effect. And therefore, like for me, for instance, I'm a pretty good writer. And when I sit down and write a script for a video, this is definitely part of my process of how do I tell a story in a way that frames what I'm trying to convey the best way. It's terrible, but it's required because not many people know about the framing effect, and so they're not going to relinquish it, right?
For sure. Yeah, I have. Do you want to go, Joe? I have like a ton to say on this, so y'all just cut me off at some point. But
Yeah, I did want to mention that I'm not sure if you're aware of some of the ways that polls are conducted for like when people ask it for like Medicare for all is one that comes to mind. And it depends how they ask the question or frame it. You can get like as much as 80% of people in the country agreeing with like Medicare for all if you just ask the question a certain way. But if you use the words Medicare for all, like that's a buzzword, and like every Republican will say no. So yeah, it's definitely been studied pretty well, at least with polling data, that the way you frame a question and you get a different answer out of that framing.
yeah, it's wild. This effect can do so much work in such subtle ways. Um, there's like things where you're like, hey, this medication is 99% safe, and people are like, oh, cool. Or if I'm like, hey, there's a 1% chance this will kill you, you're gonna be like, no, I'm not taking that. They do it with like foods as well, like 80% fat. Oh, nice. Or imagine if you saw 20% fat, right? Like you're gonna view both those messages very differently. One's gonna seem like, oh, appealing from a health perspective, and the other is gonna seem not appealing, even though they're saying the same thing. So framing effect, this one gets like really philosophical too, as do a lot of these, because you start to tread into this question of what is the difference between persuasion and manipulation. And as you think about this, you start to realize these lines are kind of fuzzy. However, the problem with framing is that everything is in a frame. There is no neutral frame of anything. Anytime you talk about it, you are framing it. And so my general advice here is to frame it in a way that is, that positively frames your message, because there's going to be no way to frame it neutrally. There really isn't. Like there's no truly neutral frame. And especially with what we're doing, everyone has basically been inundated throughout their entire lives with a counter frame to veganism. And so even us bringing in a frame that would be like more biased towards our position is going to be like a drop in the ocean of the framing that people have experienced in the other direction. So like, I was doing, an egg outreach a couple weeks ago. And the question I ask people, I start off, I go like, so what do you think about animal abuse? And what do you think about people who abuse animals? Oh, cool. And so like, what is abuse to you? Now this is a frame of sorts because I'm starting the conversation off. I'm anchoring it on abuse and what abuse looks like, right? And then we're going to go through and explain what happens to animals, blah, blah, blah. But if they came up and I said, hey, what do you think about, humans having personal freedom, and what do you think about people trying to like impose their beliefs on you? And imagine if I started off that way and then I told the same exact things after about animal agriculture. I gave them the same exact speech. Well, in one of those cases, they're going to be much more open to viewing it from the animal's perspective, right? And from the perspective that we're going to want to open them up to, versus viewing it from their own selfish perspective and the perspective they've been like sold their whole lives. And so I just don't see a reason not to frame it in quote unquote our terms, because that's how we're trying to like wake people up. Like there's like right now there's all sorts of frames happening that are implicit. Like I have a frame that you two are generally good faith interlocutors, right? I have a frame that you guys are actually vegans. Like you're not like undercover cops who are not vegan, who are like trying to like break into the animal rights movement, right? I have a frame that generally people are going to listen, say, and if I didn't have that frame, I wouldn't be on the stream, right? So there's all sorts of things that my behavior is being affected by these frames that are just implicit that I'm not even thinking about until I try to actually think like, what assumptions am I coming in here, And so you're constantly being influenced and bombarded by these frames all the time, and they're just totally affecting you beneath the surface. And so it's another thing where you with the attitude where you say like, hold on a second, let me slow down. What's this attitude I'm feeling? You can do the same thing and say, hold on, let me slow down. what frame am I coming from? Or what frame is that person coming from? And we know Carnus frames because we hear them all the time. We know they're coming in thinking it's natural, it's normal, it's necessary, right? And so you can go in and explicitly counter those frames when they say them. You can do it beforehand, or you can like preload the conversation, which is what I often do, with some sort of frame up front. And this is why, like, if you see me at like I've done like I said, AVs. I am not nearly as good at an AV cube as I am during my own outreach, because my own outreach preloads so much in those first like 5 to 15 seconds to try to like rip apart all these. And with AV, you don't necessarily get all that. And so like a different strategy is warranted. But again, in my outreach, a lot of thought goes into disentangling all that up front in a very sort of intuitive and quick and sort of conversational way. So just something to like, keep in mind. In the same way, say, what frame are they operating out of? What frame am I operating out of? What frame best suits animal liberation? And then work from there. Because I don't want to just give you a formula of like, use this frame, but think in those terms, and that will get you thinking in frames and defending against their frames in a way that's more intuitive, implicit, organic, whatever. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about your opinion on AV. You brought it up because I know the AV script at the very end, it holds the interlocutor accountable for their actions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering what your thoughts were on that, because I know the script is something like, until the day you go vegan, you're responsible for what you see on the TV. Do you think that's a good framing device, or do you think that's kind of like leaves them with like a negative feeling walking away from that convo?
Yeah, it's sort of hard to say. I think you definitely want to connect it to them. You want to explain what's happening, and then it's because of us, what we're doing, and you are one of us. It's what humans are doing, and you are. I usually ask a slightly different question. The one I like is like, if that were you in the gas chamber, how quickly would you want you to stop? Someone like you to stop. And a lot of people are like, oh, okay. And sometimes I'll push them and be like, well, how quickly? Like, I want them to say it. And they'll be like, yeah, immediately. I'm like, yeah, immediately. Now what AV does, and I think that's kind of similar. The thing that AV does where I'm like I'm more skeptical. I think it's totally fine to do this. I'm not like hating on people who do this, but where they're like, okay, so are you going vegan? Like from right now on, you're going to be vegan, right? And they're like, I don't know. And they're like, so are you? But come on, like they're going to, this, you're funding this, so you're going to go vegan. And, a lot of times people will say yes. And then like, I feel like a lot of people are like, yeah, cool, did it. Got him to go vegan. And like in a high pressure sales situation like that, people oftentimes are just this is the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? The people who argue hard against you, they're fighting. Some people who just like don't say anything or try to walk away, that's, the people who just kind of freeze and don't say much and are just kind of like, oh, okay, that's freezing. The people who walk away or just run by and say something to you and go, that's fleeing, right? The fawning one is the one that's harder to see though, because there's these people who will just agree with everything you say because they want you to stop talking to them. And if you keep pressuring them and be like, but come on, you're going to go vegan, right? You are going vegan, so you should go vegan. Eventually, look, maybe they will, but there's a lot of incentive for them to just be like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm going vegan. Yeah, all right, we'll see you later. You know what I mean? And so like, I think it's fine to do, but I don't think we should get super like, I think we should be very skeptical that in that high pressure situation, when they say, yes, I'm going vegan, that they're actually going to go vegan. And I think because a lot of people say yes there, people have thought, well, this is a very good strategy because I'm getting them to say that they're going vegan. And so I would just be like somewhat skeptical of, are they actually going vegan in those scenarios?
Yeah, I was told that AV is like 60%, 60% effective. And I was like, is it though? Why aren't we 30-40% vegans? What's going on there? Justin, let me ask you a question about this. What do you think is the a psychological effect of somebody saying, yeah, I'll go vegan, but not meaning it at that point, and then they walk away? Intuitively, I feel like that makes more damage, in my opinion, because I said I will go vegan, but I didn't mean it. And it makes them more dig in, I guess, into not going vegan for a while. What do you think? That's intuitive.
Yeah, maybe. Again, I could see it going that way. Yeah, it's really hard to say. Jeremy says there is, we don't need to rest on our intuitions, but there is more research on effectiveness. Jeremy, I'd definitely be interested to see that. If you can link that in the description or the chat, what you mean by that. I don't know, like, and maybe there is more direct conversations, or I know there can be like more broad scale research. My understanding is the research is still a little like patchy here, but I could be wrong. I know that one of the things the research shows is that showing video is very effective. And so rather than like having them say, yes, I'm going to go vegan, I look at it more of like a checklist of things that I want to get done in the conversation. And I consider it a win if I get through all those. Because the other thing is people are coming up to you at all different levels of knowing about veganism. Some people are going to be like hardcore carnivores. Other people are going to be like vegetarians with 3 vegan friends who have heard some of this before and maybe saw part of a documentary and maybe they're on the fence. And so like what I'm trying to do is just get the same information out sort of every time and the same things. And so like what I want to do is I want to listen to them a lot. So I want them to feel heard, right? I want them to tell me their values they think is bad before I just tell them what I think is bad. I want to then educate them. I want them to know at least 2 or 3 really like piercing details about animal agriculture. And ideally I would show them a video. I try to show them a video. If I can't, then I go in hard. Chicks are blended alive. Pigs are in gas chambers. Pigs have their testicles ripped off. And in instances where I can, I will also like visually do the thing. So like I say like, hey, and this happens on all farms, just so you know, pigs, they actually remove their testicles, and they do that. They take this slit in their scrotum, and I do this. Slit in their scrotum, that's the scalpel. And then they will actually rip out their testicles. And I do like the violent motion. And the same thing with like, if I'm talking about cows, I'm like their hand, and they'll put their fist all the way in their anus up to their elbow, and then they'll take a long needle of semen and inject that as well. And like I'm pantomiming the whole thing if they're not going to like watch the video. And this will kind of come to something else we're going to talk about here, which is like the availability here. Because people, like we said, with confirmation bias, it's not just that they don't tend to seek it out. The seek out and interpret, we can do there for them because they already ran into the information even though they weren't seeking it out. And we're going to be able to help them along with like the interpretation of the material. But when they go, they're either going to remember it, they're not, they're going to be somewhere in between. I want whatever I do with them to be very memorable. So one, I want to have an emotional reaction with them. Mm-hmm. And that's why I want them talking a lot about like how they feel, because that's more resonant. That's what they'll remember more. They're not going to remember someone talking at them as much as they're going to remember them working through. That's like just a general principle with like teaching. Like when you teach children, like in high school, middle school, whatever, this is the Socratic method. You want them engaging with it so they remember, okay? Then the other way I think I make them remember is by telling them something that is just absolutely shocking and then pantomiming it, giving them that real visual, you know? And then at the end, I tie it back and I explain that they're responsible in some way, or I say like, put yourself in their position, how quickly, right? So those sort of 3 things, a lot of active listening, some sort of like light bulb searing, like memory thing. And then tying it to they are like part of this and that they can stop doing this. And as long as I get those 3 things, I consider the outreach to have been generally a success, you know? And I try to worry less about like, did they say they were going to go vegan? And I will also give them a resource to help them go vegan. But I worry less about whether they like literally said, yes, I will go vegan or I won't go. Because like, I want them to go vegan for the animals, but in some sense, I kind of don't want a 5-minute conversation to change. I want them to go home and like consider it. You know what I mean? I want them to think about it later and then kind of get there themselves. Because if I browbeat them in like a 5-minute conversation, then how durable is that like behavior and belief?
Yeah.
Like, are they just going to get browbeaten like 5 minutes later into another? Like, I want this to be durable. I take durable over immediate any day.
Yeah.
That's kind of like where I'm coming from.
I agree with
Sorry,
you. That's kind
answer.
of like some, I don't know, my outreach is being criticized by people. because I don't like the AV tree. I can't stand it. I don't like the word respect. I don't like using that stuff. And I also don't like dodging questions. So whenever people ask me questions, I answer them in a way that is like, hopefully most, I don't know, closest to the question, right? I don't like dodging them. And I'm being criticized over that because I'm like not immediately bringing it back into ethics all the goddamn time, which I should do more. That's the criticism is not 100% invalid, right? But I totally agree with you. People have this, the way I see it, it's cognitive bias. And you have this belief, right? That it's natural, nice, and blah, blah, blah to eat meat. And that belief has so many small beliefs around it that basically keep this belief alive, right? And if you start taking away those little bubbles, this protein though, fats though, all of that stuff, if you start taking them away and saying this is bullshit, this is bullshit, this is bullshit, the belief stands alone there. It's no longer as supported. So that's my huge belief in how it's how I do it anyways.
I think there's something interesting too that when... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna give an anecdote. I've done public meetings before for like infrastructure stuff we design as like a representative, because I'm an engineer, so we have to like go to these public meetings and answer questions from the community. And we were designing a roundabout in kind of a rural area. And if you know anything about right-wing America, they hate roundabouts and they hate alternative infrastructure. And this one lady came up to me and she said, "Why are you building this roundabout? I hate roundabouts." And I kind of went about a different approach. I just said, well, if you just want it simply, like roundabouts kill fewer people. And she's like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "So you know when you're driving down a normal intersection and you're making that left turn and then there's that accident that happens that's like a T-bone, like, and I just did that." And she's like, "Yeah, that's so scary." And I was like, "Roundabouts remove those." She's like, "Good point." And like, I think she, like just doing that pantomime, like you said, like this smacking sound of like a car smashing into another car, that T-bone left turn. Yeah, I was like, roundabouts, you go about 15, 20 miles an hour maximum, and it's like a parking lot accident if there is one, and no one gets hurt. And yeah, I think she like walked away with that, like, damn, that's, maybe I like roundabouts now. She was just like this rural lady who lived on a farm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. I actually didn't know that's why roundabouts are roundabouts. I thought it was just more efficient for traffic. I'd never even heard that explanation.
Yeah, that's also true. They're more efficient. Basically, you can go up to like 20,000 cars a day, and they work just fine. You know, they're all over Europe, and people use them. They're used to them. Yeah, they're more efficient. Traffic flows through better. They're safer. They require less energy because you don't need traffic lights.
Oh yeah.
They require less maintenance. Yeah.
Interesting.
The only downside is they take up more space, so you need more public right of way to build them. But they're the way to go. They're way better.
Nice, very cool. Someone in chat said something. Has this panel discussed why talking about abstracts like trillions as opposed to bringing the focus on a few or an individual animal size not be? Yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Can we hold that thought? I'm gonna take a little pee break and I'm gonna insert an ad so that sanctuaries can get some money at some point from this channel. So, sorry guys, it's okay to take 1 minute break and then we can discuss this? Awesome.
Yeah, fine with me.
Yeah, Justin, I don't know if they're putting, I know we're on the ad, I'm watching too. I don't know if they put them in North Carolina, but there's a new interchange called a diverging diamond. Have you seen those where you like go to the opposite side of the highway? They're just so cool. And again, it's like the big safety thing. It takes out the T-bone movement. And they're also more efficient, and there's fewer light phases. But if you Google diverging diamond interchange, it looks really wacky at first, but they're like they're kind of the new paradigm with interchange design, and they're just like
Interesting.
way better. Yeah, you actually go to the other side of the highway, and when you're on top of the bridge or under the bridge on the interchange, and then you switch back, and it seems really confusing on its face, but you could watch some videos on it, and it's just yeah, it's basically
Wait,
like every new interchange we're doing is one of those.
I feel like I have seen that somewhere, but it wasn't. Wait, wait. Oh, wait. Is it happening in Denver?
Yeah, we have some in Denver. There's one in Colorado Springs. State Highway 7 was one I designed. I can actually send you a visualization video I made on State Highway
Okay.
7. It's like this whole fly through thing. There's one in Durango, I think. Yeah, they're good. They're good up in Colorado. Okay, I can stop talking about infrastructure.
All right. You were probably heard by the live stream. I have no idea. Frankly, I'm sorry. I have no idea.
Oh, sure.
All right. So
Oh, they could hear us during that. Oh, sorry. Then we were fucking up the ad. I didn't realize.
I have no idea if the ad
Sorry.
even came in. No idea.
Well, you guys got a little talking to about highway design and interchange design, so we'll move on here.
Yeah,
We can go back to
if-
Lewis's question.
If people in the chat can tell me if you could hear Justin and Joe talking about the intersections. No ad. We heard them. Awesome. We are very professional today. We are very professional. Okay. Well, then the pennies are not going to be go to sanctuaries. That's fine. So one against trillions. So my opinion is that because people kind of know this, when this effect was first talked about, it was like, I don't know, like 1980s, 1990s, of like the individual person is more likely to like spark empathy than the billions, trillions, whatever, or the millions or the thousands, right? I think it's people today are kind of a different beast, and talking about one animal would sound manipulative, whereas talking about billions is just like a true claim. That's my take on it.
So
I was actually reading
there's-
a Substack philosophy article recently on utilitarianism versus deontology, and how like some people when they're making utilitarian calculations actually look at each individual differently when they're making their aggregate, and it's kind of like your classic trolley problem, but kind of got me thinking like about the veganism thing where I always do think about the individual animal. So like, and I think you agree with me, VPM, that you're like a threshold deontologist where there's like some utility threshold that will trigger something. But trying to remember where I'm going with this. But yeah, long story short is I think it might be important to think about individual animals in conjunction with like the mass scale of
Oh,
like,
this
yeah,
is
there are trillion.
this is misunderstanding of the question, Joe. I think so. I think Leon was asking about the advocacy. So presenting to the people either one singular animal called Bessie, or presenting them with the number of trillions of animals that are being killed every year.
Yeah. I think what I'm trying to get at is I think it would be prudent to present both
Yeah.
and kind of a conjunction of like these are the raw numbers, like 80 billion land animals and then trillions when you include fish, but then also in conjunction to that, in concert with your advocacy, like these are individual beings. They have a conscious experience like your pet dog or your pet cat.
Yeah, the thing
so
I'm wondering about is like, so there are the individual stories, right? Vegan FTA does them a lot. So like the pig who jumped off the truck, right? And then they're saved, and then in sanctuary, and the name is Steve, right? That's an important, and it like increases the reach, increases the views, right, of that specific reporting on this one animal, single animal. The question is, like, all of these people have the trigger, the empathy does get triggered for this pig, but do they actually connect it to the trillions? And I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, so I'm going to just put it in two things into the chat if people want to look at them. They're not, I can send links or whatever, but just search these things on whatever, Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever thing you want to look at. But two things here are compassion fade, sometimes called compassion collapse, and scope neglect. So these could be entire biases that we just looked at another day, saying, but they're kind of what we're talking about, how like this is the whole, basically they can kind of be summed up this is reductive, but they can be summed up in, a trillion deaths one death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic. Okay. So the way that I think about this is, again, I'm just going to keep going back to this. If you can show a video, show a video. If you can show like one or two pigs getting put into a gas chamber, okay, that's going to make that's how our brains are meant to operate. They're meant to operate on this like one-to-one small scale, that's how our ethical brains are meant to operate. So this like one-to-one small scale, this individual is being wronged, exploited, whatever. And so that I think is the attitudinal, right? That hits you in your attitude, is that individual that you see. Okay, that's where you're going to be like, that's where you're really going to feel it. And you might not feel it when someone says, a million pigs are killed or whatever, right? And I don't think you want to lead with a million pigs are killed. You want to lead with that individual so that they have that attitude, they have that understanding. But I think it is worth pointing out the scale, especially depending on who you're talking to. So this is really where I don't always mention the scale, actually, and I think I have pretty good conversations. But I'm also not like naming not saying, hey, there's this named Bessie and da-da-da-da. And I'm also not advocating like, hey, there's a farm and they have this one cow that is being hurt, right? It's not so much that, it's more like getting their brain into that narrative, that sort of ethical narrative state. And narratives tend to focus on like protagonist, antagonist, focus on like an individual and how they're doing. And so I want them in that mode. Like I often walk them through what happens to us as they go the factory, or I don't say factory farming, I say animal agriculture. And I'm like, okay, when they're a baby, their teeth and tails get cut. And then when they're a little bit older, maybe it's not even a little bit older, they'll cut off their testicles and then they'll be cramped and confined and taken away from their mother. Like I walk them through the whole life cycle, give them that of the individual. If the person is more scientific or like quantitative or numerate, I will definitely bring in facts and figures then. And one thing you can do, and someone mentioned this in chat, is like rather than just being like, yeah, 80 billion land animals are da-da-da-da-da-da, put that into some sort of narrative itself to contextualize. Like what I say is like, yeah, something like 80 billion land animals are killed per year. So over the course of like 2 years, that's more animals than there have ever been humans that existed. So that's like one way I do it. Or if I say 80 billion, I'm like, think about right now, if every planet in the solar system was Earth, and they all just got nuked right now, all at once, right? That's how many land animals we're talking. Although that's not even right, because there's not 10 planets. It's even more than that, So I oftentimes will put it in sort of more colorful terms like that for them, just to highlight that scale. But I think if you're going to leave off one and not the other, leave off the big statistic and focus on the individual, but don't do it the other way around. If you can show like a video of an individual or individual, try not to leave that part off, I think.
Okay.
So Justin, I had a quick thought. I'm actually taking my kids and wife to the animal sanctuary tomorrow, north of Denver. I don't know if you visited when you were doing outreach here. It's called Love in Arms, and basically it's like the idyllic place for an animal to live out their life. They have cows, pigs, chickens, goats, ducks, horses, and just gonna take my kids there so they can see happy animals and connect with that. I'm wondering, like in outreach, if there's a use for showing like this is what their life could be, this kind of like as a juxtaposition to what their life usually is.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. This is something I have not done. I have advocated for other people to do it, but I have yet to. But not just showing like a pig that gets the normal treatment, but a pig, like an individual pig who is on a sanctuary, just to show them like, yeah, exactly like what you're saying, because not everyone so much responds to like the negative as well as the positive. But I think that's another like 1-2 punch you can deliver, right? You could have like the individual on the farms that we have now, like the horrible life, then show them the individual in a good life, and then explain the scale of the problem. And if you can hit all of that in an outreach, great. The reason that some of this is like a little like idealized is because you don't always have 20 minutes to talk to every person, and you don't have a time to hit every single point. But I think that to me sounds like a really awesome tool in the arsenal, and something that I have not done yet.
It's kind of weird that it's haven't been done yet. Like the life of a pig in a farm, life of a pig in a sanctuary, side by side kind of situation.
I just thought of that now. I think it would be really effective if you had like two TVs, and it's like, which world would you prefer? Possible world A or possible world B?
Leeduli, I think you own something there, Joe. You should start doing it.
Well, yeah, it just came up because I'm like literally going to the animal sanctuary tomorrow, and it's like a 1.5 hour long tour. You get to visit all the different animals, and my kids are coming. It's going to be just amazing. You're going to get to pet the pigs and everything, and I think we help feed them and stuff, and it's just there's this YouTube channel called The Dodo. I'm sure you guys have all seen it.
Yeah.
Where they just like show rescued animals, and I showed my daughter a lot of their videos on YouTube, just like so she's more familiar with like, and that was kind of my thought process. Like, this is what the animal could be living. And there's this guy who adopted a pig, and he started his own sanctuary because of like this pig named Arthur that he named. And man, it's so emotional. He's just, and then he like adopted two more pigs to get them friends, and then like he's like opened up a whole sanctuary. It's just like, I'm pretty sure a vegan runs the Dodo because there's no other way people are like putting that.
Here's the thing, allow me to interject there, because often the Dodo also shows farms and like the pet pig that farms who slaughter pigs for a living do that kind of stuff, and basically whitewash farms as well.
Yikes.
Yeah. Guys, we should start moving on because holy shit. We have 4 more. Anchoring. This one, Justin, can you read it out? Do you mind?
Sure. So anchoring. The first thing you judge influences your judgment of all that follows. Human minds are associative in nature, so the order in which we receive information helps determine the course of our judgments and perception. For instance, the first price offered for a used car sets an anchor price, which will influence how reasonable or unreasonable a counteroffer might seem. Even if we feel like an initial price is far too high, it can make a slightly less than reasonable offer seem entirely reasonable in contrast to the anchor price. Be especially mindful of this bias during financial negotiations such as houses, cars, and salary. The initial price offered has proven to have a significant effect. I did chat about this already. I think the main way that this helps is to like anchor them really early on in the conversation, and kind of show them that you're like just a chill person, and like you would be someone that they could hang out with, chat with, threatening, and things like that. Anchor them to you being someone who could be in their in-group. And again, the other thing too is, like we said, it all meshes in with framing effects and all that stuff. When I start talking about abuse and framing things in the terms of abuse, or like another thing I used to do was say like, hey, just a couple silly questions for you. Like, would it be okay if someone walked up and punched a person? No. Why not? Would it be okay if someone walked up and punched a dog? No. Why not? What about if they punched a punching bag? Yeah, that's fine. Right? Okay, what if they punched a pig? And that's the kind of like, So now I'm framing the entire conversation around sentience, right? But they're telling me that sentience matters to them. So like I'm framing it, but they're framing it. But I'm framing it so that they're framing it. You know what I mean? And so that anchors it all on sentience. So now the entire conversation is sentience-like conversation, right? And so that's our lodestar. That's like our guiding light. And so, yeah, like I said, I think a lot of these they mesh together in many ways, at least in the context of outreach. Yeah.
Joe?
I love it. I'm just trying to think of something else to add, but I don't have anything additional at this point. So you can, if you have anything, VPM.
Moving on. The availability heuristic. Your judgments are influenced by what springs most easily to mind. How recent, emotionally powerful, or unusual your memories are can make them seem more relevant. This, in turn, can cause you to apply them too readily. For instance, when we see news reports about homicides, child abduction, and other terrible crimes, it can make us believe that these events are much more common and threatening to us than is actually the case. try to gain different perspectives and relevant statistical information rather than relying purely on first judgments and emotive influences.
Yeah, VPM, I just put in the chat on this Discord, if you could open up the little graphic. I thought it was just a really good graphic to help demonstrate how the availability heuristic works.
Give me a sec.
Sure.
Because the setups are... copy image? No. Okay, I'll try. It's gonna be over your face. I'm sorry, Joe.
That's
No, I'm gonna fix it. It's too small. So the availability heuristic. So all the information is the big circle, the information that is most available to you. So the most recent one, recently or media coverage or relative unavailability of different information is this one dot. There was a bus accident on the news. Riding the bus is dangerous, and I'll never ride on one again. I've never heard a news story about diabetes as a cause of death, and the likelihood of that happening just must be low. Nick spoke on Twitter about an accident that happened with some kind of a device, or rather, there was an accident that, I think it's like a roller coaster or something that got snapped into or whatever the fuck. And he was like, how do people go on with these things? And somebody explained to him, listen, if that's your, the probability of this is so tiny. And if you don't decide not to go on roller coasters, then how the fuck are you flying or getting into a car or just walking on the street? And Nick was because he's doesn't hold beliefs too strongly, said, yeah, good point. I was gibberating.
Yeah, gibberating.
I'm just joking. I really love it when he uses this word, and I adopted it wholeheartedly.
He has some Nickisms for sure. That's one of them. Back to transportation, my expertise. It's United States alone, 40,000 people a year die on the roads, 40,000, and so I actually do commute to work on the train when I don't drive, and it's not like some pompous I'm trying to be more progressive and I'm going to take the train to work. It's no, I'm actually reducing my risk of death, and there's other reasons too. I get some walking in, some exercise, and it's a lot less stressful. I'm sure you've all been on the highway, but literally the biggest reason is I'm reducing my risk of death by getting on the train versus driving. And it's scary out there. It's 40,000 people a year. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the largest causes of death for children. But yeah, people are afraid of roller coasters or airplanes and other things. And because, yeah, those make big media headlines. But I think you said it earlier, it's there's a death or a statistic versus a tragedy. And you see that number is 40,000 people dead per year from highways. And it's yeah, that's a big number. Okay, I'm going to get in my truck now and go drive around.
Yeah. If anyone has never been on the Reddit, I highly recommend the Fuck Cars subreddit. It will definitely push your, especially if you're in the US, it will definitely push your intuition for transportation.
And another shout out to Not Just Bikes YouTube channel.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah,
he rants a bit and goes a little long-winded, and he's angry, but I appreciate the anger. Mm-hmm. He's pretty funny.
All right.
There's a really common availability heuristic thing that they always bring up. This is if you ask people what kills more people, shark attacks or the logging industry, and because the visceral terror and imagery of a shark attack is so much more vibrant, people will say shark attacks kill more people because no one ever hears anything about logging. How does someone even die in logging? What does that mean? Even though logging is significantly, I think logging is one of the most dangerous jobs there. Or maybe it's logging versus, and logging kills more than police in a sort of similar way. And that sort of that visual, immediacy and powerfulness of a thing, that often affects the availability heuristic. And again, so I'm just going to keep beating this same drum. This is why, if you can, show a video. So,
another quick one from my experience. I used to work in construction, and they would have weekly safety meetings, just required. And What do you think the biggest accident or hazard is on a construction site, if you were to guess?
Something falling on your head.
Yeah. See, okay, I'll tell you what my intuitive thing was when you just asked that. It was like a brick falling on someone's head when they weren't. It was in my head. I don't think that is what it is, but that's like what I feel like it is.
Yeah, so yeah, you're thinking like hard hats, both of you. Like
Yeah.
that's why they wear hard hats. That is
Yeah.
an accident that happens. It's really rare. The one that's most common is tripping.
Yeah, yeah.
Tripping
I
and
actually
tripping and
knew
falling.
that.
And
I actually knew that because my parents are
Yeah, so-
undergoing like a building thing. And
yeah, it's
that was
so
mentioned.
common, and it causes the most injuries, like most hospital incidents, like most broken bones. Because on a construction site, there's just like shit everywhere. There's like loose wires, and there's like rebar laying around, and yeah, it's the most common accident. And like the thing they drill into your brain when you're on a construction site is eyes on path, eyes on path.
Yeah.
And that's just like keep your eyes on path, because it's statistically the most common thing. It's just like tripping and falling. And yeah, it's just like, okay, people, look where you're fucking going and stop tripping.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why
It is
like
though, like
my mom and I, we can't go to the construction site of the new like apartment because both of us have like a problem with our vestibular machine type situation. Yeah, so falling off like to a I get off a chair, I sometimes almost fall off, and so we shouldn't. Yeah, go on, Justin. I'm sorry.
No. That was interesting. Yeah, I think that's funny. I think that you correctly identified, Joe, what was leading us both astray, which is when I think of construction site, the first thing I see is like a guy in a white shirt and a yellow hat. That's like immediately what pops into my head. And then my thing was like, why is there the hat? Oh, because something's going to hit them in the head. And so that's like what my immediate, like, and that was just easy, like an easy image to call forth in my mind, but obviously not like the correct answer. So I think that's a really good.
Yeah. The other
really good,
PPE you have is like steel toe boots,
Yes.
stuff falling on your feet, and then you also have gloves for your hands. You have safety glasses, ANSI Z87 safety glasses. So, like people like working around like saws and sparks,
Oh, yeah, getting
like
shit in your
welders
eye.
and stuff. Yeah, the shit'll fly in your eye. Then there's also hearing protection. There's all this different PPE, but yeah, just like fucking tripping on your ass is the most common.
All right, moving on.
I did want to like.
Oh, sorry.
I did want to real quick address something in the chat because a lot of people, I don't know if this was something in the chat or not, but people were saying like we shouldn't like something about baby steps, don't promote baby steps and all that. And I just want to point out that like I was not advocating. I don't know if they interpreted me or any of you, but like I was not advocating for baby steps at all. That is not the point I was making. So
I just recognize
just in
that the likelihood of somebody going vegan is higher if I like debunk all of their surrounding beliefs to the belief we should eat meat. No baby steps here. No, when people are, I feel that they are ready to go vegan, ask them, go vegan. There you go.
Yeah, and I just want to say what I was pointing out there, guys, is whenever you say, are you going to go vegan? And they're like, I don't know, and you keep asking them and they say yes. My only point there is to say that yes is not necessarily a genuine yes. So just like temper your understanding of like the effectiveness of that technique, right? Because if you do shit outreach, you can still browbeat them at the end into saying yes. But make sure all of your outreach is good and look for other indicators of good outreach than if the end they just say, yeah, I will go vegan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Justin, when you brought that up, it just reminded me of another Always Sunny classic episode where it's like, are you going to buy this house? Are you going to buy this house? Are you going to buy this house? Yes, we'll buy this house. It's like, made a sale.
All right. Belief bias, my favorite one. If a conclusion supports your existing beliefs, you'll rationalize anything that supports it. It's difficult for us to set aside our existing beliefs to consider the true merits of an argument. In practice, this means that our ideas become impervious to criticism. So that's when I say resistance to change, that's what I mean. And are perpetually reinforced. Instead of thinking about our beliefs in terms of true or false, it's probably better to think of them in terms of probability. For example, we might assign a 95% plus chance that thinking in terms of probability will help us think better, and a less than a 1% chance that our existing beliefs have no room for any doubt. Thinking probabilistically, I hope I said that right, probably
I
not,
got it.
forces us to evaluate more rationally. A useful thing to ask is, when and how did they get this belief? We tend to automatically defend our ideas without ever really questioning them.
Yeah, so back to Nick. I don't know if you've seen his website with his arguments, but he has this thing called a banger rating, where it's like how, what am I trying to say? It's that 95% thing there. How sure is he of this argument? And a lot of his arguments, he has like the 100% banger for like veganism, but some of them he has at like 50% or like 75%. He's like, I'm pretty sure of this, but I could be wrong. Like, because some of the premises in my arguments might not have evidence for them, but like my intuition or other factors, like the evidence is pretty good. So that's, and then also back to confirmation bias. Before we started the stream, we kind of discussed, this seems a lot like confirmation bias, but we discussed the difference here was that belief bias is more of a conclusion, where confirmation bias is more looking at evidence and like evidence seeking for a claim, where belief bias is you hear a conclusion and then you are biased to believe it.
Yeah.
And I'll let you guys go on.
Yeah, so I think that's something really important here. I think you described that well, because had never heard of belief bias. So I think that's cool to sort of disentangle it a bit from confirmation bias. Confirmation bias seems more like the method, and that's the conclusion, right? Belief bias is the conclusion. I want to say something that just sort of got me thinking about this banger rating. So yeah, the banger rating that you're referring to is something sometimes called credence. Like, what is your credence in such and such a belief? It's sometimes also called like Bayesian reasoning, which refers to like a statistical thing. And so I think that I have done this for quite a while because I've read about it a lot. And it really just, it situates your epistemology. Sorry, I've used epistemic and epistemology a shit ton in this, and I've not defined it. Epistemology is basically like the study of how we know and how we know what is true. What's the best way to get at truth or acquire knowledge or all that sort of that realm. And so I just think that you're in a much better epistemological space when you do that. And you start to react less fragilely to people attacking your beliefs when it's not this binary, I either believe or don't. One way, I don't know if this is vegan advocacy so much, sometimes it comes up when I'm talking to like really debatey bro-y people, but just for getting your own mind around certain things. One thing is I think about like animals' sentience, right? I think in actuality, an animal is actually either sentient or not. I think sentience is binary, but my confidence that an animal is sentient is very spectral in nature. It has this sort of Bayesian probability to it. So like my confidence that I am sentient is 100% because I know that I'm experiencing things like even if I'm a brain in a vat, I'm still experiencing. My confidence that like you two are sentient is like 99.9, but it's not 100% because I do not know that you guys are actually like, you could be robots, you could have a brain that's very similar, but for some reason not be sentient, but because you have similar brain structures, similar biology, you're part of the human species, I have this very high confidence, high credence. But as we get further and further away from humans, my credence gets smaller and smaller. And so like, for, I don't know, cows, pigs, chickens, it's somewhere in the 90% range, probably upper 90s, pretty confident. But once we get down to, like insects, now I'm getting...
Sorry, Justin, you got cut off. Can you repeat about the insects?
Oh, sorry. Once I get down to insects, then maybe I'm like in more like the 30 to 60% range, depending on the insect. And as we go down further and further, when we get to sponges, I'm pretty close to probably zero or close to zero. But that matters. You know what I mean? That probability of sentience is going to matter for some more philosophical questions. And it's going to matter, especially like as we, hopefully get further along this animal liberation timeline, because we're going to start to have these trade-offs that right now there's not enough of us for anyone to even give a shit about. But at some point we're going to have to decide like, okay, we have these two farming methods. One kills like 1,000 fish and another one kills like 20,000 bees. Well, which do we go with? What if it killed 100,000 bees? You know what I mean? And so like there's reason to kind of think about this now Maybe not the most important thing for advocacy, but things like that change because if you just viewed, okay, if it's below 50%, I don't think they're sentient, and it's above 50%, I do think they're sentient. You're just not going to have the correct level of granularity to address serious problems in like but yeah, a little philosophical and a little forward.
Yeah. I actually lately had a conversation, a short conversation, but nonetheless, with a neuroscientist of consciousness who changed my mind a little bit on the sentience of being binary, but not as much, right? So there are some animals who are definitely, he says, in transition to becoming sentient, or it's kind of unclear if they're sentient or not. And he also said that in the past, when animals first developed sentience, they kind of turned it on and off, right? So they used the sentience part to like seek food and like in case of danger. And the rest of the time they would kind of turn it off and just like cruise based on like tactile kind of feeling situation. So I'm saying this just to say that the presence of the sentient structure doesn't mean that the creature is sentient, and even the presence of the tactiles doesn't necessarily mean that the creature is also sentient. And he gave me a few examples of animals who are like on the verge of become sentient, so maybe there is a gradient there, and it's like land snails, worms, animals like that. So incredibly interesting. I'm actually considering he gave me the name of the book that he wrote. I'm definitely considering buying my first in years like hard copy of something just to read it because it's so interesting. Sorry?
Was the book Other Minds?
No, give me a second, I'll tell you what it is. The name of the neuroscientist of consciousness is John Malat, and he wrote the Debunking the Myth Debunking the Myth of Plant Consciousness. He was the one who wrote this book, this paper. The name of his book, he co-wrote it with Todd Feinberg, and the name of it, give me a second, I'm sorry, Gmail is really terrible. The Ancient Origins of Consciousness. The Ancient Origins of Consciousness is the name of the book.
I had a quick question for your belief, Justin, that sentience is either on or off. Would you say that a hypothetical creature that can only experience the color white or the color black, is that sentient? And that's just
great question. So great question. So my understanding from what I've read, sentience is used in sort of one of two. And one is to either mean just an ability to experience. So like, I experience red, but there's no good or bad to red. I have no valence. So in psychology, this is called like a valenced experience, is when like something evokes some sort of positive experience in some way. That could be like for instance, like the feeling of love is positive. The feeling of pleasure is positively valenced. Negatively valenced would be like loneliness or physical pain. But negatively valenced experiences could be experiences that they are these like theoretical experiences as well. And so some people use sentience to mean like the ability to have valenced experiences, and some people just mean it to have experiences. And so it depends on what kind of sentience you mean. Generally, when I talk about sentience, what I mean is having a valence, because that is the morally relevant thing to me. So like if there was a being, let's just say hypothetically, that could just experience white and could experience heat and cold and all these things, but there was nothing like good or bad to them about it, then to me that being is not like, does not have a moral relevance to me, because there's like nothing bad or good that can happen to them. Now that's not to say that this is where it gets into like credence though, because like I could think that there's a 10% chance that a being is sentient, but I would still act behaviorally for the most part as if they were sentient. Generally speaking, because if they are sentient, then like whatever we're doing to them might be absolutely terrible. And so like in many instances where like, for instance, if I thought there was a 10% chance that pigs were sentient, I still wouldn't commodify or exploit or eat pigs. Because like there's really there's no upside and there's a ton of downside. You know what I mean? So like an animal that could experience, or just a being, I don't even know, just experience white, but with no vein. That wouldn't be a relevant type of to me, I would say. Yeah, but again, if we had 100% proof that, I don't even know how you get this, that a being could experience white, then I would be like, this seems like a really high chance that they can valently experience things as well, you know? And so like, if we had really high probability or high credence in that, then I would really think that the chance that they could experience valence things in like a real world scenario.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't over explain that. Sorry.
No,
No,
you're
that's
doing
great.
good.
I love the very nuanced, and I learned a new word today. I love it.
All right, let's move on. The last one, the placebo effect. If you believe oh, Joe, can you read it? Sorry.
Sure, yeah, and before we begin, I said we would go over the nocebo simultaneously.
Yeah, sure.
Since that wasn't a card. So yeah, I'm sure most people are aware of the placebo effect. It's if you believe you're taking medicine, it can sometimes work, even if it's fake. The placebo effect can work for stuff that our mind influences, such as pain, but not so much for things like viruses or broken bones. Things like the size and color of a pill can have an influence on how strong the effect is and may even result in real physiological outcomes. We can also falsely attribute getting better to an inert substance simply because our immune system has fought off an infection. For instance, we would have recovered in the same amount of time anyway. I think I've heard that about chiropractic. I've seen studies on that.
Yeah, I heard
so
it.
The bold text at the bottom says, homeopathy, acupuncture, and many other forms of natural medicine, quote unquote, have been proven to be no more effective than placebo. Keep a healthy body and bank balance by using evidence-based medicine from a qualified doctor.
I actually know of a qualified doctor, like an orthopedist, who uses acupuncture for this reason, I think, to make people feel better from placebo effect.
And then, the opposite side of the coin is called nocebo, which is where you get a negative effect from something, even if it is inert. And that happens quite frequently as well.
Yeah, so an example for nocebo effect is monosodium glutamate, I think. Oh, the MSG.
Yeah. MSG is really funny because it's like actually really a lot better for you than normal table salt. It's lower in sodium and it tastes saltier. And yeah, it's like, I think I even advertise it on the MSG bottle I have upstairs. It says like 60% less sodium than table salt. And like all the studies across the board shows it's like not bad for you. And if anything, it's better for you than normal salt because it's just lower sodium. So.
And yet I know somebody who claims that she gets headaches when she eats monosodium glutamate. There you go.
That's the nocebo effect. There you go.
I get really good taste in my mouth when I have it. So it's like really good.
I actually never bought like the actual powder. I just used like the blends that have monosodium glutamate in it, but I'm definitely convinced to buy one now. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, it's the one in the United States is called Accent, and it's actually usually like in the Hispanic food aisle, and it's just pure MSG in a bottle.
Yeah, that's the reason I never saw pure MSG in a bottle in any store, so I'm gonna have to hunt it down, I think.
Yeah, it might be under a name brand because it's probably not very advantageous for them to just put MSG on a bottle.
Why? It would make me buy it more.
Yeah, it would make you and me buy it. But yeah, the one here is branded. It's called Accent. And it's like spice up your flavor, I think is like their little tagline.
May contain monosodium glutamate. All right.
There's another one with like in-group, out-group bias too, because that was like my understanding, at least, of the one or two podcasts I listened to, was that there's like a racial.
Yeah. There's a racial component to it. Although it's like it's a story, so I'm not sure if that's true or not. You know, it's like the story about Ansel Keys. We know it's bullshit, but it's so prevalent that it's like.
Yeah. So it could be a lie, but that this is what.
Yeah.
This to me has like a ton of relevance, less so for like, well, I guess for advocacy, not so much street outreach exactly, but like the whole ex-vegan thing. Like this to me has ex-vegan written all or carnivore, right? This is where people are like, oh, meat good for me. I went on a carnivore diet and I felt great, you know? Or the thing is, I think for me, it was like, I know especially when I first went vegan, like I think there was a couple months and I felt bad for like a couple weeks for whatever reason. And I was like, oh shit, is it the vegan diet? Is it the vegan diet? Maybe it's right. Because we've been primed and it's a new thing we're doing. And that nocebo effect, you know, even it's not quite a nocebo effect, I guess. It's like a latent one, like just waiting to like hop on there, you know?
Yep.
And
I
so
have it.
it's one of those things that can be very, very influenced by your mind and then also by how you interpret information. There's something called the regression towards the mean, like in health. And so like all throughout life, like you would just feel bad sometimes, you know? And if you're younger, you probably don't know this yet. Like if you're 20 years old, you probably haven't had, but trust me, as you get into your 20s and especially your 30s, like you just like feel really bad sometimes. Like something happens with your digestion thing, and then it just kind of resolves this regression back towards the mean, back towards your baseline. But if in that time when you're feeling bad, you go, well, gee, was it the vegan diet? And then, so you're like, oh, I don't know, let me get off the vegan diet. Then you feel better because you would have regressed towards the mean anyway. And then you go, oh, it must have been the. And so that's something that you really want to be on the lookout for. And this is something I'm just like going off on fucking tangents here. I would encourage anyone here who's interested to check out the Sentientism podcast by Jamie Woodhouse, because his whole thing is Sentientism. He has two basic pillars that he's like committed to, and that's compassion and reason, and basically reason being epistemology. Both of these things are important because if you have the compassion, right, obviously you're going to include everyone who should be included in your moral scope. But you can have all the compassion in the world. If you have a shit epistemology, you are just going to come to bad conclusions. And you are not going to be able to help all those individuals as best as you can, and yourself as best, right? The perfect example is someone, a vegan who's like, we shouldn't be taking B12 ever, but is vegan for the animals, right? This is like they're getting the ethics right, but the epistemology wrong. And both are important because you can't behave in the most ethical way. You can't do the most good unless both these pillars are something. Okay. And I often just in the vegan community, obviously, I think the empathy one is correct. So to me, the one we've got to work there, or the compassion one, I don't like it, but it's the epistemological one.
Joe,
Yeah.
last words about the placebo effect, or?
I had the opposite experience going vegan, and I think a lot of people do, is that you just feel amazing for a few weeks because it's just like, first of all, you don't really know what you're doing, so you just like find all this health food, and then you stop eating fast food, and then you're just like, man, I feel great. But it's probably just because I'm like eating more vegetables and whole grains and stuff, and like soy milk instead of dairy, and yeah. But yeah, I have had that sneak into my mind before. It's like, man, I feel like absolute dog shit right now. Did I remember to take my multi, or like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're just sick. Everyone gets sick.
Yeah.
Actually, for the first 2 weeks, I really didn't know what to eat, and I really didn't investigate well. So I definitely underate calories for like 2 weeks. Lost some weight, but felt a little bit like shit. But had no reason, like no way that I was going back. Absolutely no chance.
Yep.
Yeah, I think something to advocate for as vegans is to not be afraid of processed food and like ultra processed foods for like, because like ready to drink stuff like Huel or Soylent, and then also just like protein powders, which are, I know there's like a lot of Whole Foods plant-based people who just shy away from all that, and then they're like anti-oil people. And yeah, I think we should just like advocate for like, don't be afraid to eat a little junk food. It's fine in your diet to have sometimes have some chocolate, have some candy, live a little, because I think that'll just like help adherence more, and also to like have those resources available. It's like, oh, I can have this ready to drink stuff if I run out of food, or I don't know what to eat today.
Yeah.
I also, I've been meaning to make, this is like another idea I have for like content, is I want to create like vegan microwave chef, like, because I like make most of my meals in the microwave. Like I'll make rice, potatoes, and like veggies, but I actually make it taste really good, like in a bowl, and I like make it aesthetically pleasing. I want to like start like Instagram shorts of like Joe's vegan microwave chefery, and then like show the chronometer next to it. It's like, look, I have everything. Well, if
Yeah.
you put
Yeah.
potatoes in there, you almost have everything. But
Yeah, gotcha. And
Yeah.
true. You put a potato and like some kind of a protein in there. That's it. You're done. Basically.
yeah,
Good.
whenever I eat potatoes and I'm actually tracking chronometer, I'm just like, God damn, potatoes are just like the best thing ever. They just like,
Dude, I'm also a big fan of the microwave meal myself.
Oh no.
I do not like cooking, but I don't even make mine look good. Like I could never make an Instagram out of it. I'm just like, do they
No,
have
I
the
mean,
macros
like-
yet? We're good to go.
yeah, just like what I do is like the freezer veggie bags, like the broccoli. Then I'll microwave like
Yes.
a potato. Then I'll cut up tofu and I'll microwave that. And then I just like combine everything. And I even have like the microwave rice bags. And then I like put them in like nice little quadrants in my bowl. And then I'll like chop some veggies, like tomatoes, put some sauce on top. And it's like, hey, this actually looks like a legit meal, but I just like made it in the microwave.
Dude, this is my totally gross, like just fitness meal that's quick. But I guess I do have to boil, yeah. I do quinoa, and then I just do like exactly what you said. I just take tofu and broccoli and put them in the microwave and then throw the quinoa on top with some seasoning. I'm good to
No way.
You just take an extra 45 seconds and like aesthetically quadrant it like in a little bowl.
put it
Then
around.
get one of those squeeze bottles where you could have like the cute sauce and like squeeze it on top and a little drizzle.
Oh yeah, in the zigzag pattern.
Yep, the little
Yeah, yeah.
zigzag pattern. You like
The
Use some
Instagram
food.
pattern of sauce.
exactly. Or do like a little spiral. You can do a little spiral too.
All right, guys, I think we finished. We are done. Everybody, thank you very much for coming. Justin, I appreciate you for coming. Joe, I appreciate you for coming and initiating this endeavor. I don't know what we're going to do next week. We'll see. Joe has more ideas, frankly, for those Saturday live streams. Justin, see you on your channel at some point, right?
Yeah. I'm doing a video about Mike Israetel. Is that his?
Mike
Dr. Mike.
Israetel. Yeah. That's how he
Right,
pronounces it.
Israel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen him
Justin,
before,
have
but
you
I was only
seen-
recently introduced to him. Like, so
Justin,
started watching some
so
of his videos.
if you haven't seen it yet, there is a very long vegan debate with him versus Dr. Avi.
Oh, there is
And
one
it
with
is gonna be-
vegan gains as well. Have you seen that, Joe?
The I probably have, but I'm not remembering it. But yeah, the Dr. Avi versus Mike Israetel is one of the cringiest things you'll ever see, and you will hate Dr. Mike Israetel by the end of it.
Really?
Yeah, it's so bad. It's like the worst vegan debate I've ever seen. It's
Aw.
really cringe.
It's wild because in this recent video, it was like about a month ago. Overall, he is like he didn't really need to go this deep about veganism, but he's like way more sympathetic to it than the average person, to me. And he even he brings it up a lot and is like he's like, in the long view of history, vegans are right, they're better people than us, like blah blah blah, which is like,
That's just lip service that he pays, frankly.
so.
Yeah,
But see,
I'm
not-
convinced
not
of it
everyone
now.
will say this. Okay, you think that's just
Yeah, because I've been watching like a lot of his content because I actually do appreciate his epistemology in some cases, in some things, right? And he has like a separate channel where he talks about concepts in a way that is like pretty awesome. And I like his approach in a way he like presents concepts to people, right? He Stillmans. He like talks with a lot of compassion about stuff like that, right? But at this point, I'm pretty sure when he talks about veganism, he totally makes a lip service in this case because of the debates that I saw him in, where he wasn't like that at all. It's just how he approaches concepts, but I wouldn't give it too much credence, frankly, in my opinion.
okay. Interesting.
Yeah, but I love to see that video that you're making.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see.
Still
Hopefully, it'll
waiting
be
on
out
that
in.
Deer calorie, the hunting video.
Oh god,
That's
that
the
one.
one
I know. I sidelined that one because I need to check my. I'll send it. Are you guys good at math? You're an engineer. You're good at math, right?
I'm pretty decent at math. I do it for a living.
Yeah, this isn't hard math. This is just like napkin math. Then. I might send it to you. Get you to check my work to make sure everything looks good. Actually, maybe we
could
could do
have,
a call because some of it I have to
We could
explain.
also bring Brian Loves Beans on the call because he's better at math than me. He's a structural engineer, so.
Okay, we could. I don't know if we need that much math power. I just need to check. You just have to be as good or better than me. Okay.
I'm trying to make myself smaller because I'm terrible at math. All right. Again, thank you very much for coming. I hope this was interesting and educational to everybody else, and I'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.